777. That's the total number of drivers that have raced in F1. Yet only 34 have won the title. But what about those drivers that maybe should have won but didn't? Was it bad luck? Was it politics? And what happened? Well, in this video we'll see 8 of the top F1 drivers who conquered race after race but never claimed the crown, and we're going to rank them from best to worst. My name is Jake, welcome, let's get to it. To kick us off, we're looking at a fan favourite, the biggest personality in F1. Lightning quick, with a heck of a smile, it's Daniel Ricciardo. The Honey Badger has given fans some of the most exciting moments in F1 history. Let's go back to 2014, the year I started watching F1 proper. It was his first season at Red Bull Racing. Now, everyone thought Vettel was going to keep dominating, but Ricciardo just shows up and wins 3 races while Seb's over there in the corner trying to figure out why his car hates him. Ricciardo then proceeded to use Vettel to wipe the floor that season, and Seb ended up going to Ferrari as a result. And those wins weren't just lucky. Ricciardo was the only driver to challenge the Mercedes duo that year. Now fast forward to 2018, and things were looking spicy. I mean, he wins in China with those legendary passes, and then takes Monaco, basically dragging a broken car around for pretty much the entire race. Like it's no big deal. But here's where the F1 gods said, nah mate. 7 DNFs that season ruined any shot at the title. That was realistically his best chance. It was prime Danny Ric, but you know, Renault hates reliability, so there's that. Since then, it's been a wild ride. He went to Renault and was comfortably faster than Hülkenberg and Ocon, but it was McLaren and Lando Norris that truly destroyed him. Gone. Just career over. Monza 2021 was the last time we saw prime Danny Ric. I personally think he was built to be at the front of the pack. He seemed like a confidence man, someone who drives off of feeling rather than numbers. But should Daniel Ricciardo have been world champion? I think so. But in F1, talent only gets you so far, right? You've got to be fast, in the right car, at the right time. And unfortunately, Danny's timing was awful. Still, I'm sure his fans think that smile is worth a championship on its own, though I'm going to throw him in A tier. What if I told you that the most sportsmanlike act in F1 history cost someone a championship? Now, this driver wasn't just insanely quick. He was a true gentleman, and he's a great role model for drivers and fans today. I've got nothing but respect for this guy. Sir Stirling Moss, the greatest driver to never win a world championship. And that's not just some sympathy title. The man was legit. Over a decade in Formula 1, he won 16 races and finished runner-up in the championship 4 times. 4. In a time where drivers were basically dropping like flies. Now, Moss could drive anything with wheels. F1 cars, sports cars, rally cars, you name it, he probably raced in it. I've got some facts here. Moss raced from 1948 to 1962, winning 212 of the 529 races he entered. He competed in as many as 62 races in 1 year and drove 84 different makes of car over the course of his career. One of his most famous wins, the 1955 Mille Miglia. He drove 1,000 miles across Italy with nothing but a stopwatch and his co-driver yelling directions off a paper map. Oh, and did I mention, they won by over half an hour. As you do. Now, I know what you're thinking. If he was that good, why didn't he win the championship? Well, bad luck, mostly. He had cars break down often, which was common for the time, and in 1958 he literally lost the title because he defended his rival Mike Hawthorne from a penalty that would have handed Moss the championship. Now, that's how much of a gentleman this guy was. I mean, you wouldn't catch drivers doing that these days. That's all I'm going to say. But this raises an interesting point. Your titles don't tell the whole story. Stirling Moss was the driver everyone respected. Fast, fearless, and fair. He didn't need a shiny trophy to prove he was one of the greatest of all time. Legend on and off the track, he's going in S tier. In Formula 1, success isn't just about talent. Sometimes it's about timing, luck, and things completely out of your control. And few know that pain better than drivers who came so close to being a world champion. I take Mika Häkkinen. After his terrifying crash in Adelaide in 1995, he didn't just recover physically, he needed mental support too. Now, he had a sports therapist at McLaren, Mark Arnold, for a number of years, and it helped him rebuild his confidence. And just a few years later, he became a 2-time world champion. Now, most of us aren't fighting for world championships, but we do know what it's like to give everything and still fall short. To feel like we've done everything right and somehow it's still not enough. And that's exactly why talking to someone like a credentialed therapist from today's paid partner, BetterHelp, actually helps. Because even world-class drivers need a support system. George Russell, Lando Norris, and Yuki Tsunoda have all spoken about how therapy helps them handle the pressures of racing. Romain Grosjean worked with a psychologist after his near-fatal crash. So, if life's throwing you its version of a last lap heartbreak, maybe it's time to talk it through. BetterHelp makes therapy easy, online, and without the need to fly to Maranello to make sense of things. All you do is fill out a questionnaire and you get matched with a therapist. If it's not the right fit, you can switch at no extra cost. Join Russell, Norris, Tsunoda, and countless others in getting a head start on your mental health journey. Visit betterhelp.com/jmgp, scan the QR code or click the link in the description to get 10% off your first month. Thank you, BetterHelp. Okay, imagine a driver so fearless that he'd race a car missing half its front wing just to keep going. That's Gilles Villeneuve. Now, he was the wild man of Formula 1. He only raced in F1 for 6 seasons, but in that time he became one of the most loved, fearless, and for those that know, let's be real, slightly unhinged drivers the sport has ever seen. Gilles didn't just race, he fought cars around every corner. Rain, snow, gravel, didn't matter. The man drove like grip was just a suggestion. One of his most famous moments? The 1979 French Grand Prix, where he battled wheel to wheel with René Arnoux for second place. Banging tyres like it was a demolition derby at 200 kilometers an hour. He didn't even win the race, but it's still one of F1's all-time greatest duels. In 1982, he was poised to become Ferrari's golden boy and a serious championship contender. But a team betrayal at Imola left him fuming, and just weeks later, tragedy struck during qualifying at Zolder. His crash was fatal, cut his career short, a career that many believed would have ended with multiple titles. But Gilles didn't need stats or trophies to prove greatness. He was pure passion, fearless, unpredictable, an unforgettable driver. An F1 icon who raced like every lap was his last. I'm going to put Gilles in B tier for this list of people. He was an exciting driver to watch. Speaking of exciting, the next guy was a proper hothead driver. I mean, if you thought Max Verstappen had good reactions, well, his guys were better. He had raw talent, charisma, and the driving style of a bull rider. Yet despite this, he left the sport with just one win. So what happened? Let's go back to the early 90s. Jean Alesi burst onto the scene driving for Tyrrell and immediately started turning heads.
Look at Jean Alesi, look at him, climbing all over those.
He was in one of the coolest looking F1 cars ever made. I mean, a thing that's like a TIE fighter or an X-Wing, and he was out there fighting wheel to wheel with Ayrton Senna at Phoenix in 1990. And everyone was saying, this guy's going to be a champion in no time. But then, the decision. In 1991, both Ferrari and Williams offered Jean Alesi a seat. Now, Williams was about to dominate the decade with championship-winning cars, but Alesi, well, his heart said Ferrari, and when the prancing horse calls, you don't say no. Unfortunately, Ferrari's engineering department was as bad as their strategy in recent times. He had unreliable cars, bad strategy, the works. Alesi drove his heart out, but he kept getting let down by mechanical failures. It actually became a running joke. If Alesi was leading the race, something was definitely going to happen to his car. And his only win came at the 1995 Canadian Grand Prix. Fitting, since Montreal adored the guy. His car ran out of fuel on the cooldown lap, so he hitched a ride back to the pits on Michael Schumacher's car, waving to the crowd like a rock star. Classic Alesi. Jean was all passion and flair, but bad timing and even worse reliability robbed him of what could have been a legendary career. Still, he's remembered as a fighter, and honestly, that's pretty legendary too. So I'm going to put Alesi in B tier. David Coulthard, the chin of F1, and one of the most consistent, underrated drivers of his era. Now, he wasn't just fast, he was the ultimate wingman, a guy who played a key role in championship winning teams, but never quite grabbed the big trophy for himself. Coulthard started making waves with Williams in the mid-90s after replacing the late Ayrton Senna. He won his first race in Portugal in 1995 and looked set to be a future world champion. Then came the move to McLaren in 1996, which should have been his ticket to glory. Problem was, he just had two small issues. Number one, Mika Hakkinen, and number two, Michael Schumacher. Not exactly the easiest guys to beat. Despite that, DC was no slouch. I mean, he racked up 13 wins, including some absolute classics. Take Silverstone 2000, the guy sealed the win by just 1.4 seconds to his teammate in front of a roaring home crowd. He did the same thing again in 2002, holding off Schumacher in Monaco for pretty much the entire race. But Coulthard wasn't just a driver, he was entertainment. He never held back, and when he wasn't winning races or crashing half the field out, he was delivering as a teammate, helping McLaren secure Constructors' glory alongside his teammate Hakkinen. Now, the big question, was DC world champion material? Probably, in a different era, to be honest. I mean, he picked the wrong time to be an F1 driver with Schumi and Ferrari leaving everyone to play second fiddle, but instead he became one of F1's most respected veterans, known for his speed, honesty, and that jawline. In terms of ranking, he's actually the second most successful driver never to win a title behind Sir Stirling Moss, so for that reason, I'm going to put him in S tier. Next up, true Aussie grit, aka Mark Webber, who fought tooth and nail in Formula 1, but never quite got that world championship. Known for his brutal honesty, fearless driving, and zero tolerance for nonsense, Webber was the guy who call it how he saw it, and then back it up on track. His F1 journey didn't exactly start out glamorous. In 2002 he debuted for Minardi, which was basically the F1 version of driving a go-kart at the Indy 500, but somehow, don't know how, Webber finished 5th in his first race in front of his home crowd in Australia, no less. I mean, that was a great start to his F1 career. Fast forward to his Red Bull years, 2009 to 2013 was Webber's prime, a 5-year stint where he was right there fighting at the front. He won 9 races, including absolute bangers like Monaco and Silverstone, but there was one slight issue. A certain Sebastian Vettel, who was basically Red Bull's golden child and had a tendency to not follow team orders. Speaking of that, let's talk about Multi 21. Malaysia 2013, Webber's leading the race. Red Bull tells both drivers to hold position. Now Vettel, I'm good. He overtakes Webber anyway. And oh man, if looks could kill, well, Vettel would be dead. Now, if you want to hear more about this story and many other team order stories in F1, I did a video on it, so cue it up if you fancy watching that. But despite the tension, Webber stayed a fierce competitor, finishing 3rd in the championship 3 times. He was relentless, gutsy, and always drove with that classic Aussie grit, which is where his Instagram name came from. Now, was he a world champion? No, obviously, he wouldn't be on this list if he was. But anyone who saw him battle at the front knows he had a lot of talent, just not the political backing. Still, Mark left F1 with respect, some iconic moments, and a reputation as one of the grid's toughest fighters. In terms of ranking, I like Mark, I really do, but for this list of people, I would say he's towards the bottom, so I'm going to drop him into C tier. It's mainly just to do with the fact that he was in a Red Bull when the car was dominating and he didn't win as much as Vettel. That's basically my reason for it. Felipe Massa up next, the man who came this close to being a world champion in 2008, literally one corner away. Let's rewind. Massa joined Ferrari in 2006 as Michael Schumacher's teammate, and most people thought that he'd just be the number 2 guy. But no, Felipe proved he was way more than a sidekick. He won races, fought for poles, and he was lightning quick at tracks like Istanbul, where he basically set up permanent residency on the top step of the podium. Then came 2008, his golden year. He won 6 races and went into the final round in Brazil with a shot at the title. And when he crossed the finish line first, the Ferrari garage exploded in celebration. Massa was world champion for 39 seconds.
Is that clock going slowly?
It is,
That's
it's clock. Oh my goodness me, Hamilton's back in position again.
Yes.
The 2008 Formula One World Champion, Lewis Hamilton.
We finished in the front, and we have to be very proud about that. And unfortunately, we missed 1 point, but that's racing.
And just when you thought it couldn't get worse, 2009 happened. During qualifying in Hungary, a rogue spring from another car hit Massa in the head at full speed, leaving him with a life-threatening skull injury. It was the kind of accident that could have ended his career. I mean, it almost took his life, but, you know, it almost ended his career as well. Fortunately, Massa came back though, but this time it was different. He never quite reached those 2008 heights again. He remained a fan favourite, respected for his resilience and loyalty to Ferrari. Felipe Massa might not officially be a world champion, but he's sure as hell giving it a good go in the courts. I do like him, but he needs to let 2008 go. He's going in C tier in this list. Now, the last guy on this list was the ultimate team player and one of the most experienced drivers in F1 history. Over 19 seasons, he racked up 11 wins, 68 podiums, and the kind of loyalty that made Ferrari's strategy department a little too comfortable. Now, let's be real. When people think of Rubens, they think of Austria 2002, the infamous race where he was ordered to pull over and gift Michael Schumacher the win. Rubens obeyed, but the world knew he deserved better.
Is he? No, they're gonna. Yes, he is. I do not believe it. I do not. Adam and Eve, what is going on?
Despite that, Barrichello wasn't just a sidekick. He was fast. He played a huge part in Ferrari's dominance during the early 2000s, and later proved his critics wrong by winning races with Brawn GP in 2009 during one of the wildest seasons in F1 history. A brand new team winning the double with the same car they showed up with at the start of the season? Unheard of, and a true testament of what Rubens could do in a car. What made Rubens special was his adaptability and resilience, I think. He was always an underdog in F1, but there's no doubt he belonged at the front. And while he never clinched a title, his impact on the sport was undeniable. A beloved veteran who proved time and time again that winning was about more than just stats. So in terms of ranking, I'm going to put Rubens in A tier. He deserved more. And I think we've seen a lot of these drivers actually sort of deserve more from their teams as well. I mean, Barrichello, Webber, Ricciardo as well. I did a video a while back on the worst team order scores you have ever seen in F1, like unbelievably bad. I mean, if you want to watch that, it's here, go for it. If you're new and you haven't subscribed yet, you know what to do. Let me know who you think I should talk about in a future video, and I'll see you in the next one.